Hi, I'm Mono, and this is Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormground, a new entry into the seemingly never-ending list of Warhammer games that have been released in the past few years, but one that definitely has a pretty novel approach to the tactics genre. Stormground is a run-based tactical roguelike featuring 3 different factions with 3 different campaigns for each of them. Each campaign is basically a string of randomly generated battles with a boss battle at the very end, kinda like Slay the Spire, if you know what that is. With each battle won, you unlock new items, units, and weapons, and whether you win or lose, you get to keep everything that you've unlocked for use in your next runs, meaning you are gradually getting more and more powerful, but also getting a wide pool of items and units to pick from. Sounds good? Well, it is. However, there's a lot more going on and it gets kinda complicated, so let me do a quick rundown of what a run actually looks like. Alright, at the start of each run or campaign, you get to pick 2 units to take with your hero. These units, as well as any special equipment and skills, are randomly unlocked after each stage, so the very first time you start a campaign, you have no units, no special weapons, nothing. It's just your hero at its most basic form, and whatever units you get to control as part of the tutorial mission. However, as soon as you finish your first battle, you'll be able to use the unit that you just got as well as any items on your next battle. You can deploy up to 4 different units, and there's no limit in terms of army composition or unit power. So you win battles, get random loot and units, and try and set up the best possible team you can for the next encounter. Sometimes the battle rewards specify what you'll get, but there's always a random nature to it. For example, you'll see you will get an assault type unit, but you don't know exactly what specific unit that will be. This being a roguelike, you might be wondering what the permanent unlocks are. The answer is everything. Every unit, every weapon, and every skill that you unlock through the game is added to your initial roster. Remember I said at the start of each campaign you can choose 2 starter units? Well, the units and equipment at your disposal are the ones that you've gained in all your previous runs, unless you've converted them into XP to level up other units. However, once you've set your hero and 2 starting units, you will not have access to your stored weapons, meaning after that, you will have to rely entirely on the rewards that you get during the run. The one thing that you do retain access to are the skill cards, which are basically perks. Since there's 4 unit slots, you will want to pick up at least 2 new units during a run, which will hopefully synergize with your initial setup. So it's a very compelling concept because it's essentially 50% grinding and crafting good starter units and 50% dependent on whatever luck you have on your run. Now, the fact that all rewards are essentially random is something I didn't really like when I first started playing, because there's no way to try and focus on getting a specific weapon, for example. You might need to play the campaign 4 times before you finally get a good weapon for a unit that you like. And while that is kinda lame, it does force you to work with whatever you do have and try out units and combinations that you wouldn't have chosen otherwise. I do wish there was a way that you could craft units or craft weapons or something, but that is sadly not the case. However, this random nature to the unlocks has resulted in me thinking about how to maximize my effectiveness during pretty much every spare moment that I've had over the past few days. I recently got a fantastic legendary sword for my hero that makes her deal more damage, meaning I can one-hit almost every regular unit type, and she will also automatically heal after any enemy charge attack, making her a frontline beast. I also got a hammer that can heal nearby unit for my shield bearer, the Liberators, as well as the ability to summon them twice, turning them into an incredibly valuable unit. And even as I'm saying this, I'm already thinking about other items that I can use for a completely different type of playstyle. So that's the core gameplay loop. You play battles, you get better loot, and then use that loot to upgrade your units for the next run. And that part is awesome. There's not a massive amount of unit variation, but the skills and equipment can really alter the way that they play. Each faction plays remarkably different, which is to be expected from a Warhammer game. The Stormcast are pretty straightforward, while both the Nighthaunt and the Maggotkin have extremely specific mechanics regarding spawning units, regaining health, and so on. Suffice to say that the three armies play very differently, and with the amount of different unit types and skills, I feel like I've only scratched the surface after roughly 20 hours of playtime. Most of those were spent with the Stormcast, and I am still unlocking new skills and weapons. So yeah, even after 20 hours, I am still unlocking new stuff. Enemy AI is not the best, but it is challenging. It doesn't really focus down units to try and take them out quickly, choosing instead to attack several different units, often whatever unit is the closest, even though it's clearly not the best choice. However, that doesn't mean the game isn't hard, as given the small number of units, small mistakes and missed opportunities can add up very quickly, and boss battles especially can be quite tricky. So while it's not the greatest, I also think it's perfectly fine. Perhaps most importantly, it's a lot of fun. I've been pretty much playing this constantly for the past few days with absolutely no intention to stop. I am constantly looking forward to unlocking more weapons and trying out units that I've neglected in previous runs. Speaking of which, you have to strike a balance between unit cost and upgrades, since more upgrades for more powerful units means you need to wait more turns before you can summon them. It's a trade-off between spawning weaker units faster or holding off the enemy until your OP reinforcements are finally able to spawn. So there's a lot of variety, not necessarily in environments or mission types, but definitely in terms of building different types of armies and learning to adapt to the specific faction that you'll be playing against, as well as the units you happen to get during the run. Now, let's talk about the not so good parts. First off, the interface. It's just not very good. Health bars are too big with no option to tweak them in any way, meaning sometimes it can be very hard to understand what the hell is going on. Mousing over to get information is also not that great, as the text is often hard to understand, and there's no additional information like a codex or reference guide at all. You only really understand how the units work once you've played with that specific army yourself. The way you customize your units is also severely hampered by the UI. And this is perhaps the biggest issue I have with the game, as you'll be doing this quite often. For example, in order to remove an item, you need to right-click on it, but that's also the way that you inspect that item. So you often end up removing an item that you wanted to inspect, and vice versa. There's no way of editing or even seeing what a unit has equipped before adding them into the slot to your army, so you need to add them, then see what they have, and if they're not the unit that you wanted, then you gotta do it again with another unit. When you have a unit and you're trying to see what weapons and skills you can equip on them, you will see stuff currently equipped by other units, but there's no way of knowing which specific unit has them. You need to go in and manually check each single unit if you want to find that out. Duplicate items and skills aren't grouped up together either, resulting in no easy way of knowing how many copies of the item you actually have. Instead, they all seem to be grouped in a completely random order, maybe the order in which you picked them up or something, which means finding specific items to equip is way more complicated and time-consuming than it needs to be. If you have, say, 5 cards for a +1 health, you will find them scattered all over the stack of cards. Deleting an item for XP causes the window to scroll back up, so you need to scroll back down to where you were to delete the next item. So yeah, the UI is just not very good, and it does detract from the experience in my opinion. You can learn to work around it and basically deal with it, but it's definitely an issue. I've also encountered some soft crashes where it seems like the game doesn't really know what to do next, and it just keeps looping the idle animations forever. There will be a patch post-launch, but I don't know what specific problems it will fix. The reality is the game definitely lacks some polish, and it's unfortunate because I think the core gameplay is actually a ton of fun. Visuals are alright, nothing spectacular, and music and sound effects are adequate. Again, nothing that will blow you away. Overall, Stormground is an extremely fun and incredibly addictive game, though it's held back by a convoluted UI and an overall lack of polish. I haven't played Age of Sigmar, the actual tabletop game, but I've seen some videos to get myself, informed, and I think the game does a pretty good job at trying to deliver the experience while also simplifying some of the mechanics and systems involved. I have a Steam copy of the game, but I would 100% recommend that you pick this up for the Nintendo Switch if you have one, because, you know, if there are no technical issues with that release, it's an absolutely ideal game to play on portable mode, since it doesn't really require your attention at all times. At $40, I think it's a bit expensive considering the lack of polish that I've encountered, but if you enjoy tactical games like XCOM, this should be right up your alley. I'm really liking it in terms of gameplay and overall content, but at this price point, I would expect the UI to be a complete non-issue. However, you know, that's clearly not the case. Alright, that is it for this video. I want to thank Sandbox Strategies for the review copy of the game, and let me know down in the comment section if you're thinking of picking this up. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.